outgoing White House Chief of Staff John Kelly giving an interview to the LA Times, saying he stayed at his post for 18 months despite having policy differences, personality clashes, and controversy with the commander-in-chief. He said he stayed out of a sense of duty. The retired Marine Corps general telling the Times, quote, "Military people don't walk away." Daniel Halper, contributing editor at the Washington Free Beacon, joins us now. Daniel's a pretty blunt interview. Kelly says he should be judged by what the president did not do while he served as chief of staff. You know, that's got to rub the president the wrong way.
Yeah, I found that very striking and kind of interesting. I mean, I don't really understand what John Kelly's trying to achieve here beyond trying to position himself away from the president and try to seek some distance. But for what reason then? Maybe perhaps his own social or his own interest. And I found it very striking, very odd, and not something that you would see in other administrations, quite frankly. So, you know, it's criticism like that right at the president right before he's leaving.
He said that he convinced the president not to pull out of Afghanistan, not to withdraw from NATO, not to pull troops out of South Korea. I mean, those are very serious and consequential strategic moves, if indeed they were done. So some would give him credit for doing that.
Sure. I mean, is that what he is seeking? Is he seeking credit for those? Or is, because the end result may actually be the reversal of those. That's the strange thing about this interview, is that it may further perhaps the president's inclinations on these decisions. I think John Kelly obviously is a very honorable man. His service, I think, cannot be questioned. He's given everything to this country, and we owe him a lot for that. This interview, again, it's just bizarre. What is he trying to achieve here? And that's not really clear. And I think President Trump, for his own sake, he deserves a staff that works for him and that doesn't seek to aggrandize themselves. And I think perhaps he's better off moving it forward.
One of the striking issues and criticisms that have been lobbed at the president has to do with the, quote, adults in the room. You know, the critics saying that Kelly was one of those adults in the room, and certainly that got under the president's skin, apparently, leading to some of these personality clashes.
Well, Kelly himself has furthered that. I think his star began to dim a year ago, January 2018, 11 months ago, when he was on Bret Baier's show in Special Report, and he gave an interview in this D.C. bureau, and I thought he again tried to portray himself as the adult in the room. Maybe that's true. I'm not there. He's there. He has far more insight into how these decisions are actually made. But I don't think it furthers. I don't think it's good for him. I don't think it's good for the president to make that announcement out loud. And I think it really hurt him over the course of his tenure. And in a way, his decline as chief of staff began, I think, after that interview. And there were reports that he was shouted at by the president, and their relationship turned contentious after that.
Well, it is known that the president can be volatile. I mean, I've seen it. He's very energized and exercised at times. Someone who's very passionate. Others take that as being very emotional and this sort of thing. And that certainly doesn't. That certainly would clash, one would think, with more of a calmer demeanor that a military man of military bearing, who's been in the military for decades, potentially could have.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why you would think that this kind of relationship would actually work out very well. And I think Kelly did bring a lot of order to the White House. Certainly, I think it was in worse shape than when he came in. I think he turned it around. I think it was worse shape before he came in, and he put in an order. He put in a system. There were fewer leaks. Remember, there were the first 6 months of the Trump presidency, there was a lot of devastating leaks. And I think there are some, obviously, but what's striking is that an interview like this, he really does lend credence to the view that there is turmoil inside the White House, whereas, you know, which again might be true. It might be the case. He knows better than we do. Obviously, your view of John Kelly will most likely be in line with your view of the president. If you like President Trump, you're going to be offended by this kind of interview. If you don't like him, you're going to be thankful for John Kelly. But again, it's unclear, what is he trying to achieve by saying these things out loud? And that's, I think, the striking part, and that's the newsworthy part.
Yeah, and finally, what do you think his legacy will be? You just hit on a very important point, that he brought in a more structured type of rigorous bureaucratic level that probably got under the president's skin at some point, even reportedly blocking Jared Kushner from the Oval Office and this sort of thing, according to reports. And trying to have the White House run on more of a corporate, streamlined type of structure. Do you think that is the greatest legacy that he leaves behind?
Perhaps, if that stays, or in a way, even if it doesn't. So I think chiefs of staff, their legacy tends to be determined by who precedes them and who comes after them. So in a way, I think it's hard to determine what his legacy will be until we see how Mick Mulvaney, or perhaps the permanent successor to him, will be. But obviously, him bringing order, a military mind and a military order to that White House, at least temporarily, may be it.
All right. Daniel Halper, great to see you. Daniel, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. Thank you.
Of course, and to all our viewers.